Well, millions of millennials are going to be turning 40 this year, and many more will follow, of course, in the years to come. And that means a large portion of the U.S. population could experience a midlife crisis over the next decade. However, millennials, who were born between 1981 and 1996, are unlikely to respond to this emotional crisis in the same way as previous generations.
Which what we did is we just swallowed our pain and just kept pushing on.
Yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
I have sympathy for the millennials.
All right.
As we'll have this conversation. So joining us now is Margie Lachman. She is a Fierman Professor of Psychology at Brandeis University. She's also the director of the university's Lifespan Development Lab. I mentioned that my cat sitter, who's very bright and ambitious, also goes to Brandeis. So listen, let's talk about this, because I actually found this really fascinating, because I think there's a tendency to sort of think of millennials as still like 20-somethings when they're so past that right now. What is a midlife crisis exactly? And why are millennials likely to respond differently than previous generations? Because I have learned that a midlife crisis is actually a bit of a luxury.
So thank you for having me. This is a really important topic, and I'm really delighted to be here. As you showed on your screen earlier, millennials have experienced a lot of life events at different periods of their life. And I think it's really the timing of these events that's really important. So millennials were in high school when Columbine happened, and when 9/11 happened, many of the early millennials were just about to go into college. The recession of 2008 happened when they were just starting out in the job market, and the pandemic happened when many of them were raising young children and trying to balance work and family. So the timing of these events is really critical to think about, because all generations experienced these same events, but they were at different stages of their life. So I think that's really an important point to consider. Now, the other thing that's important about the midlife crisis is that it's a misnomer in many ways. A crisis can happen at any age, and people have this sort of conception that a crisis is only happening in midlife, but you've probably heard the term the quarter life crisis.
Yes.
As well. So, and I think we don't really know a lot about millennials' midlife experience yet. Most of what we know is based on Gen X and baby boomers, because the millennials, as you mentioned, are just starting to turn 40. And so we have a lot to learn about what the millennials' midlife is going to be like. But there is this stereotype that midlife is associated with a crisis. And I think we need to really look into that a little bit more. It's not always the case.
So Professor, and you don't, like you made a good point. You don't want to compare generations, because if you do, then my generation will say, well, look, we went through as children Watergate and the OPEC crisis, the Iran hostage crisis, the Challenger disaster, the first Gulf War. You go back to earlier generations, and they lived through the Great Depression and World War II, where 50 million people died. Right. So you don't want it to be a competition over which generation has experienced more trauma. I would suggest that for millennials, the biggest difference, as far as I can see, is that we're living in the age of mass shootings. And if you are a person who either lived through Columbine, the period of Columbine, and subsequent years after, or you have now friends that have children that are in school, that is really disconcerting. So let's talk about the way previous generations dealt with the anxieties around seminal events, and what is perhaps different this time around.
Yes. No, I think you made a really important point that we don't want to compare generations. Each generation has its own stressors, and the timing of the events is going to vary. But in terms of this generation, there is heightened stress and anxiety that is associated with their lives because of these kind of events that are uncontrollable. And so this sense that there are things that are beyond your control is very stressful and can cause a lot of anxiety. And I do think that's somewhat different than earlier generations, where we didn't necessarily have these same concerns about what could happen to our children when they go to school, or other kinds of stresses associated with financial issues, which everyone is experiencing financial stress. But for millennials, it's coming at a time of really important timing for expenses with regard to paying off loans, or raising children and childcare and maybe wanting to buy a home, things on that. So I do think millennials have this added stress and anxiety at this point in time.
I think that that's kind of the key difference, even more than the sort of major world events that they lived through, is that, you know, the kind of stereotype of a midlife crisis, right, is like the middle-aged man who has finally made it to middle management, and they got the house and the 2.5 kids and the dog, and then they're like, what is left?
Right.
I'm gonna trade in the car for a hotter model. I'm gonna trade in the wife for a hotter model, and, you know, get some value out of all this hard work. But millennials find themselves, you know, in their 40s, you know, still hoping to buy a house, maybe, nowhere near the level of financial security that their parents had. And that's why I said a midlife crisis is a luxury for millennials, because they're not at that point where they're like, what else is left? They're still trying to get there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this idea of buying a sports car in midlife is really something that Hollywood capitalizes on, but it's not. There's no reality there in terms of.
It's also a very male thing. When the term midlife crisis came to be, no one was thinking about women and whether or not they were satisfied. It was only men that were, you know, dissatisfied at 40. But sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I think it's very natural at transition points, whether it's in the middle of a decade or at the beginning of a decade, to experience a lot of anxiety. The midpoint is really an ideal time to look back and see where you've come from, what you had hoped to do, and whether or not you've done it or not, and where you hope to go. But the great thing about being in the middle is that there's still half time left. So you know, if you are 40, there's plenty of time left to make changes. And so we don't want to have a crisis in midlife. I like to think of it as more of a midlife correction, or a time in which you can reevaluate how things are going and maybe decide that you want to make some changes. They might be small tweaks, they might be major life changes, but it doesn't have to be a crisis. It can be a change. And I do think it's a really natural period of time when you're in the middle of anything, but certainly in the middle of life. There's plenty of time left. And there's lots of time to accomplish your goals, even if you haven't reached them, and you may need to change course. So midlife correction or midlife course change, but let's not call it a midlife crisis. Many people dread getting older because they're worried they're going to have a crisis.
I like that.
Yeah.
We have daily crises
we
here.
do, every single day.
Vlad and I, we're always wound up about something.
That's right. Margie Lachman, thank you very much. Really fascinating discussion.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.